this hour, the BCCI has asked KKR to release the Bangladeshi player. Of course, this comes amid controversy. Now, KKR has been told to release the Bangladeshi pacer. The BCCI has told KKR to release Mustafizur Rahman. Remember that Rahman was bought by Shah Rukh Khan's team KKR. Amidst this, the BCCI action has come after SRK faced fury over the Bangladesh player in the KKR team. Remember that SRK faced immense backlash once his team, in fact, has bought the player for, of course, the IPL.
Due to the recent developments which is going on all across, BCCI has instructed the franchisee KKR to release one of their player, Mustafizur Rahman of Bangladesh, from their squad. And BCCI has also said that if they ask for any replacement, BCCI is going to allow that replacement.
When the BCCI will announce the ODI team of the team?
So you know that from 11th of January, India is going to play New Zealand in 3-match ODI series. And today we have a meeting with the selectors. And in the afternoon, we are going to announce the squad for New Zealand series, who will be representing the country.
The India-New Zealand T20 series, the third match will be held at the Borsapara Stadium also.
So far as the T20 series is concerned, there will be 5 matches, and one of the matches is scheduled to be held in Guwahati. That team will be announced at a later stage.
My colleague Saurabh joining us on the broadcast. Saurabh, walk us through the details. We're understanding that there seems to be fresh action coming in from the BCCI that has asked KKR to release a Bangladeshi player.
Well, this was always meant to be the prerogative of the BCCI. In fact, over the last few days, there have been a lot of calls for, the removal of Bangladeshi players from the IPL. And of course, Mustafizur Rahman was one of the players who was picked up in the IPL auction by Kolkata Knight Riders. But having said that, these are players who are available in an auction. They are governed by the cricket, governance body in India, which is the Board for Control of Cricket in India. And the franchisees had the option and they picked them up. And obviously, a decision of like this, even though, franchisee owner, KKR owner Shah Rukh Khan has been targeted online, the decision of allowing players or not is not with the franchisees. It rests with the governing council. And therefore, if the BCCI issues an instruction, obviously Bangladeshi players will not be allowed. But, it was expected that KKR would do something like this. At least that's what online sort of commentary that drove this entire decision seems to have hinted at. But having said that, now that the BCCI has decided, it's quite clear that the KKR will not, employ the services of Mustafizur Rahman, the bowler whom they had picked up at the auction, who was allowed to be part of the auction, who was very much part of the whole system, and that is something that's not governed by the franchisees only. It's governed by the IPL governing council. So something that was demanded from the franchises, but something that's not completely within their domain, has now, of course, been decided upon by the BCCI, which controls these decisions.
But I also wish to understand from you, Saurabh, of course, this snowballed into a big controversy. There were, of course, spiritual leaders and even politicians slamming SRK. Was there any official reaction that came in from its team, KKR?
Not really, because obviously there was a targeting of SRK, and there were BJP leaders who spoke about it. But the fact remains that the franchisees, the franchisee owners, the entire IPL is governed by a body, and which nationalities players get a chance to play or which nationalities players shouldn't get a chance to play is not decided by the franchises. It's decided by the entire people who manage that process, including auctions, and they're part of the auctions and they were picked up in an auction. So in all of this, while Shah Rukh Khan may have been targeted, the point is that, is it possible for a single franchisee owner to take a call on whether,
right,
a player of a certain nationality will be allowed to play or not? So those are questions also that were there. But yes, there was a lot of pressure on KKR to release or, to let go of Mustafizur Rahman, especially from the ruling dispensation and spiritual leaders as well. And what's happening in Bangladesh is also very, very worrying. There have been consistent attacks on minorities. But again, this is something that is purely in the domain of sports and the governing body,
right,
and the IPL has taken a decision, BCCI has taken a decision to intimate to KKR to drop Mustafizur Rahman.
Right, absolutely, Saurabh. We also have my colleague Rika joining us on the broadcast. Rika, I wish to understand from you, Saurabh's raised a really important point, which is the fact that which nationality gets to play or not play is completely the domain of the governing bodies. So all this while, do you believe that, perhaps the politicians were pinning the blame on the wrong person?
Absolutely. They were laying the blame on the wrong person. Also, let me tell you, Reed, that Mustafizur Rahman was not the only Bangladeshi in the auction pool. There were 7 Bangladeshis who were registered on the auction pool, all of them cleared by the government to be a part of the auction. Remember, even before the auction, there's a lot of paperwork that is done, and they have to be cleared by the BCCI, by the government to come into the auction pool. And thereafter, when they are made available in auction, which is when the franchises swing into play, and thereby they pick up these players. So of the 7 this time around, when the auctions happened in December, only Mustafizur Rahman was picked by a franchise, and that is Kolkata Knight Riders. Well, the blame or the so-called blame really doesn't lie with Kolkata Knight Riders or its owner Shah Rukh Khan. Also, it's rather funny that Shah Rukh Khan is being targeted because Shah Rukh no longer handles the team actively. There is a team management. There's a well-established KKR management who's taking all these decisions, and Shah Rukh Khan is not. Shah Rukh Khan may be made aware of the decision of picking Mustafizur Rahman, but he really has nothing to do in ultimately picking him or putting him in the team, playing him or benching him. All of this really lies with the team management. First, the management that picks, and then the team management that intends to play a particular player. Mustafizur, if we talk about him, he has played for Kolkata Knight Riders before, so it really wasn't a surprise pick even on 16th of December when he was picked. But with the kind of events that have gone on in the last few days, perhaps BCCI felt pressured. And yesterday, when I spoke to one of the very senior BCCI functionaries, he clearly told me that they would go by what the government tells them. And I would imagine at this point that this directive would have come from the government of India to ask KKR, to ask BCCI, communicate to KKR to release Mustafizur Rahman.
Right, Rika, I also wish to understand from you, in this case where, Mustafizur Rahman has been asked to be released by the KKR, what is, as per you, is the flow of action that's going to follow with respect to, of course, the other players in the team?
So basically, he will be informed about being released from IPL this season. Whether he will be paid or not, we'll still have to see, because he's been picked from the auction for a certain price, which is 9.5 crore, and it is not his fault that he has been released. In such cases, there has to be discussion between the players, team of the player and the team of KKR to see, how in what way they can make an amicable settlement. It is possible that a part of his fee is paid by Kolkata Knight Riders, but we don't know all those details right now. And of course, KKR will seek a replacement.
Right.
All of this has to be done by in consultation with the governing council.
Right, going back to my colleague Saurabh on this, Saurabh, of course, this snowballed into a huge controversy like we were discussing earlier. And, there were comments about SRK, especially the fact that, there were some leaders who went as far as to say that SRK is anti-national. This clearly has, in fact, turned into a big controversy. Do you perhaps think that this could, of course, even set the stage for the West Bengal Assembly elections, or is that too far-fetched an argument? Well, it seems as though we lost the line with my colleague Saurabh there. Going back to my colleague Rika on this. Rika, of course, this seems to be a big controversy. I wish to also understand from you, does the BCCI or the governing bodies of the IPL, do they have any rules set in stone which, of course, talk about which nationalities get to play or not play, owing to, of course, the political conditions that surround them?
Well, for over a decade now, no Pakistan player, over a decade I would say, no Pakistan player has been picked, obviously because of the relations between India and Pakistan. So yes, Pakistani players are not registered on the auction pool. They can't apply to being in the IPL auction. I don't think there is. Till last auction, which was held on 16th of December, there was no cap on Bangladeshi players either. But now, with one Bangladeshi player being bought and released, we don't know what is going to be the scene going forward. In the last auction, we have seen players participating not just from the regular cricket playing countries, but from the associate nations as well. There were players who had registered from Malaysia. The Malaysian captain was in the auction pool, though he wasn't picked up. So there isn't really a directive from the government other than the Pakistani players, but we'll really have to wait and see what is their stance on the Bangladesh players going forward.
Right, Rikan, because this has happened during the IPL, I also wish to understand from you, could this also stretch across formats given the fact that, India does play with Bangladesh in other cricketing tournaments?
The 2020 World Cup is around the corner. The 2020 World Cup starts on the 7th of February. India is scheduled to play Bangladesh as well. We'll have to wait and see what happens then. We have right now with telling Mustafizur to go, or rather releasing him, we may have settled the matter of IPL, and IPL happens late March. But even before that is the 2020 World Cup, which happens between February and March, and we really have to see what happens during then, what is the stance of the government, whether how they are going to, negotiate. And it seems now, playing Bangladesh might become a bigger problem than playing Pakistan. Of course, the India-Pakistan match doesn't happen in India. It is going to happen in Colombo. India will not play Bangladesh in the group stage. But in the Super 8, which is the knockout, there is a possibility that India might take on Bangladesh. Till 18th of February, we know India's fixture, but thereon it really depends on which teams make it to the next stage of the tournament. If Bangladesh makes it to the next stage of the 2020 World Cup, which is after 18th of February, then India may have to decide how to schedule their matches. Also, the other fact is that the Bangladesh cricket team as such is meant to travel to India and play their matches in India. Will that be allowed? How will that be impacted, or how will BCCI negotiate that? We'll have to wait and see. I'll tell you, for your understanding, Bangladesh's matches are in most of their matches. I can see, I'm looking at the schedule as speak to you, are in Eden Gardens and Wangkere. So we'll have to see how that is really worked around.
Rika, meanwhile, let's go back and also listen into the reactions that are coming in from the BCCI.
Due to the recent developments which is going on all across, BCCI has instructed the franchisee KKR to release one of their player, Mustafizur Rahman of Bangladesh, from their squad. And BCCI has also said that if they ask for any replacement, BCCI is going to allow that replacement.
BCCI will announce the ODI team of the team.
So you know that from 11th of January, India is going to play New Zealand in 3-match ODI series. And today we have a meeting with the selectors. And in the afternoon, we are going to announce the squad for New Zealand series, who will be representing the country.
The India-New Zealand T20 series, the third match will be held at the Bangladesh Stadium also.
So far as the T20 series is concerned, there will be 5 matches, and one of the matches is scheduled to be held in Guwahati. That team will be announced at a later stage.
Right, going back to my colleague Saurabh on this, Saurabh, of course, there have been reactions from across the political spectrum. The BJP has slammed SRK. I also wish to understand from you, the West Bengal elections are around the corner, and, some leaders have even suggested that, SRK in fact picked the player because he was in fact in close proximity to the West Bengal Chief Minister. So, could this perhaps set the stage for the West Bengal Assembly elections, or is that too far-fetched an argument?
Cricket obviously ideally cricket and politics should be separate. That's what many who play the sport have often opined. But unfortunately, you cannot ignore the geopolitical realities, and Bangladesh in the last few months has obviously adopted a pro-Pakistan stance. And politically, geopolitically, there is a shift in how Bangladesh approaches India. And the interim government, at the cost of its historic relationship with India, has chosen to align itself with Pakistan, build closer ties with Pakistan. And in the process, terrorists have been released from prison. People with pro-Pakistan links, anti-India voices have been emboldened, and all of that has happened geopolitically. So, how much that influences cricket? Because, we've seen in multilateral tournaments, India has chosen in the past to play a game with Pakistan. So, if that's allowed, then, like Rika was mentioning, perhaps in terms of multilateral tournaments, in India and Bangladesh will have to play, and if it's even the World Cup, then perhaps they will have to play, and it'll be very difficult to negotiate a way out of that. But having said that, if it's something like, a Bangladeshi player, then are we adopting the same stance as we are adopting towards Pakistan? These are things that franchisee owners, cricket administrators, cricketing bodies cannot decide. These are, positions that, the government has to take, and, the BCCI has made it clear that it'll follow instructions from the government. And, on sensitive matters like these, one really can't leave these decisions to team owners, franchisee owners, or pin the blame on them when a player is picked. The player was a part of the auction, the player was a part of the whole process. So, unfair targeting of, act Shah Rukh Khan, sure, many agree. But again, like Rika was pointing out, that Bangladesh, what stance we take towards Bangladesh.
Right, absolutely. Sorry, you rightly said there has to be a demarcation into, of course, the jurisdiction of who exactly decides who gets to play or not. In fact, we also have more breaking news coming on this. Both of you, in fact, stay on with us. We have breaking news coming in as the BJP leader has also, in fact, targeted Shah Rukh Khan. But in fact, Saurabh, I also wish to understand from you, of course, because like you mentioned that, this is not within the jurisdiction of course, either the KKR, the team, or in fact, even the governing bodies to decide. This obviously falls into the jurisdiction of the government. So what sort of a stance are we expecting there? Because, of course, this is something that is not within the pay grade or, within the domain of course, these governing bodies.
See, India's relationship with Bangladesh in terms of diplomacy, in terms of, the positions Bangladesh has taken in the last few months has undergone a drastic change. It's perhaps at its lowest that it has ever been. And whether that also translates into cricketing ties, art and culture exchanges that are quite common, especially in the context of West Bengal and Bangladesh, because, like we've been pointing out, Bangladesh was a nation that was carved out based on, language and, Bengali pride. So this is a multi-layered issue. And whether, this particular sort of step is limited to just one player, Mustafizur Rahman, who was picked up by a franchisee, Kolkata Knight Riders, who obviously was part of the process of, the entire auction process, which is something that's taken place in this country. He was obviously allowed to be a part of that. So whether it's just limited to this or whether there are larger implications, for example, like Rika was questioning, what happens when Bangladesh comes to India? Will we allow them to play? This, you can stretch it to as far as you want. But having said that, India will have to be realistic. India will also have to weigh its, options and take a stance that perhaps balances out both national interest and, sporting ties. Also, there has been an outreach from the government of India towards Bangladesh to try and improve the relationship, to try and take it forward. So, Bangladesh will have elections on the 12th of February. So, this is an evolving sort of situation. And yes, while many argue that perhaps geopolitics and international sort of relations shouldn't affect sport, and cricketing ties. The fact is that it has affected when it comes to Pakistan. Bangladesh in the last few days has taken a pro-Pakistan stance. But does it mean that we are putting Bangladesh and Pakistan in the same bracket already? That's something we don't know. That's something that's the position of the government that we don't know. So, it's stretching the argument a bit too far, I believe, is what many sports lovers say. But again, there is no sort of doubt that the relationship with Bangladesh has nosedived, and hardline fundamentalists, terrorists with anti-India stances have been released from prison. So that's something that India cannot ignore.
Right, absolutely. And Saurabh, we also have my colleague Boria joining us on the broadcast. Let's also stretch the argument towards him. Boria, of course, the important question lies, this has, of course, happened with the Bangladeshi player. Now, the question is, will BCCI, in fact, stretch this debate or, this action towards all other formats as well, or, in fact, all other, franchises of the IPL or not?
No, it is logical. I mean, now that it has happened with one Bangladeshi player, you asked me about all other formats, 100% it will. I mean, you cannot have terrorism or political instability go hand in hand with cricket. You can actually compare the situation with 26-11 and Pakistan. You have thereafter seen no Pakistani player is allowed in the IPL. You see only multinational tournaments being played between India and Pakistan, and that's been the reality since. If the political instability in Bangladesh continues, that's what it's going to happen. I was hearing the previous speaker say this, right? That this is not a decision that has been taken in isolation by the BCCI, and he's 100% right. I mean, if you think that Debojit Saikia sitting in Guwahati has taken this call on his own, absolutely not. You think no back channel talks has gone on with the government? 100% back channel talks have gone on with the government. Such decisions are not taken by a cricket body. And Debojit Saikia is a fascinating, I mean, he knows his job. He's got his acumen. He's a lawyer. He's an advocate general. He knows what he's talking about, right? So this is a call that has been taken by the government of India. So the BCCI is obviously the cricket body, but this is a political call. And India versus Bangladesh series, which is slotted for September of this year, if the political instability is not sorted by them, I see that series getting cancelled. I will say this very clearly on NDTV 24/7. I do not see that series going on unless political correctives are put in place and things get better. And that's the reality of the day sitting on the 3rd of January.
Right, absolutely, Boria. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us. On that note, we're stepping into a very short break. More news and updates on the other side. But before we actually step into a very short break, we actually have Mr. Sangeet from joining us on the broadcast. I wish to understand your thoughts on, of course, the fact that the BCCI has in fact jumped into the entire controversy and has in fact told KKR to release the Bangladeshi player. We actually have Mr. Sangeet from joining us. मैं आपसे ये पूछ रही थी कि जैसे BCCI अब आ गई पूरी कंट्रोवर्सी में और उन्होंने कहा है कि जो बांग्लादेशी प्लेयर है मुस्तफिजुर रहमान उसको ड्रॉप किया जाए, इस पर आपका क्या कहना है?
मुझे आपकी आवाज़ ठीक नहीं आ रही है, आप इस बार दोबारा से बोलेंगी?
जी सर, मैं आपसे ये पूछ रही हूँ कि जैसे अब BCCI है वो पूरी इस कंट्रोवर्सी में शाहरुख खान को लेकर इस पूरे मुद्दे में अब आगे आया है, उसने KKR को बोला है कि जो ये बांग्लादेशी प्लेयर है इसे रिलीज किया जाए, इस पर आपका क्या कहना है?
देखिए, ये पहले तो मैं BCCI और भारत सरकार का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद बोलूंगा कि उन्होंने भारत के सनातनियों और हिंदुओं की और पूरे देश के दुनिया के हिंदुओं की भावनाओं को समझते हुए ये निर्णय लिया है। तो मैं BCCI को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद बोलूंगा और भारत सरकार को भी इस पर धन्यवाद दूंगा। और ये आप निश्चित समझिए कि देश के सैकड़ों करोड़ सनातनियों की जीत है, हिंदुओं की जीत है और ये बहुत अच्छा निर्णय है। बधाई के पात्र है BCCI और BCCI ने ये मैसेज भी दिया है कि आप कोई भी निर्णय ऐसा नहीं ले सकते।
सर, मैं आपसे ये भी समझना चाहती हूँ कि बहुत सारे क्रिकेटिंग एक्सपर्ट्स हैं वो कि कह रहे हैं कि ये एक्चुअली SRK को ब्लेम करने का जो काम था वो सही नहीं था और कि SRK था ही नहीं वो डिसाइडिंग फैक्टर जो डिसाइड करता कि बांग्लादेशी प्लेयर्स IPL में खेलेंगे कि नहीं। इस पर आपका क्या कहना है?
आप मीडिया वाले इसे किस तरीके से लेना चाहते हैं ये आप भी जानते हैं कि ये केवल और केवल KKR का निर्णय था और KKR ने ही टीम खरीदी है, क्योंकि टीम खरीदना केवल जो कंपनी होती है, जो उसकी फ्रेंचाइजी होती है, वही खरीदने का काम करती है। और BCCI की नॉलेज में आया, BCCI ने, आप देखिए, BCCI ने बैन लगाने का और बाहर निकालने का काम किया है।
सर मैं आपसे ये भी पूछना चाहती हूँ, आप ये बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं कि केकेआर का निर्णय था, पर ये प्लेयर पूल में भी तो बीसीसीआई की तरफ से था, इसमें गवर्निंग बॉडीज ने भी तो इंश्योर किया था कि बांग्लादेशी प्लेयर्स रहें इसमें। अगर वो चाहते तो वो प्लेयर पूल में होता ही नहीं ऑक्शन में।
और ये जब ये पूल बना था तो आप भी जानते हैं कि ये पुराना पूल बना हुआ है, कोई नया नहीं बना था। और चूंकि ऑक्शन अब हुआ है तो ये शाहरुख खान को ये समझना चाहिए था ना कि इस तरीके से अगर आप करेंगे तो देश के सैकड़ों करोड़ हिंदुओं की भावनाओं को ठेस पहुंचेगी। इसीलिए मैंने उन्हें गद्दार कहा था। मैं इसमें फिर एक बार कह रहा हूं कि देश के बहुत बहुत बधाई बीसीसीआई और भारत सरकार को इस तरीके का निर्णय लिया, लोगों की भावनाओं को समझते हुए निर्णय लिया है।
सर पर ये सवाल तो इंडिया पाकिस्तान के मैच के टाइम पे आया था कि बहुत लोगों का कहना था कि क्रिकेट और पॉलिटिक्स को सेपरेट रखना चाहिए।
आपको पता है कि इंडिया पाकिस्तान के क्रिकेटरों पर भी बैन लगा हुआ है, पाकिस्तान के क्रिकेटरों पर भी बैन लगा हुआ है। और मैं फिर आपको कहता हूं, देखिए भारत के लोगों की भावनाओं के खिलाफ चल के कोई काम नहीं किया जा सकता। और हम भारत के भारतवासी हैं तो हम जो वहाँ हिंदुओं पे जिस तरीके से अत्याचार और जिस तरीके से कत्लेआम हो रहा है वो बर्दाश्त नहीं किया जा सकता। देखिए खेल और कत्लेआम एक साथ थोड़ी बिना चलेगा।
बिल्कुल सर, पर मैं आपसे ये भी पूछना चाहती हूँ, फिर अब इंडिया के अगर आगे जाके बांग्लादेश के साथ कोई भी क्रिकेटिंग मैच होते हैं, 1-on-1 उनके कोई मैचेस होते हैं, तो आपका कहना है कि वो मैचेस नहीं होने चाहिए?
देखिए जब तक वहाँ हिंदुओं की स्थिति में सुधार नहीं होगा, हिंदुओं के साथ वहाँ अच्छा व्यवहार नहीं होगा, हिंदुओं को वहाँ ठीक से नहीं रखा जाएगा, तब तक ये चीज नहीं चल पाएगी। लेकिन आप निश्चित समझिए कि भारत सरकार उस पर लगी हुई है। हिंदुओं का भी वहाँ बहुत जल्द अच्छा होगा और अच्छे से उनका बचाव होगा और अच्छे से उनकी सुरक्षा होगी।